Thank you very much and welcome to this late afternoon session. Probably you're all heroes of the ACHEMA. With 4 days of ACHEMA survived. This is excellent. And swollen legs and aching shoes and so on. But that's ACHEMA. I know this for 40 years now and it's always the same. So from the medical point of view, ACHEMA is not recommended. But I will give you a short overview, a glimpse on what VTU is doing in the area of fill and finish, how we approach it, and a little bit of flavor, how we cope with challenges and what we see here and there, and then you have the possibility to talk to the experts for more details. So, short intro to VTU, then challenges generally that we see, and then some examples. So, just very brief, VTU is an engineering company that was founded some 30 years ago as a one-man show spin-off university. VTU stands for Verfahrenstechnik und Umwelt, Chemical Engineering and Environment, and that's how it started with biodiesel, and very soon moved into the chemical area with pharmaceutical API production, drug substance production, over years from biotechnology in the small molecule area to bio production with large molecules, biopharmaceuticals. And in that 30 years, we grew up to more than 103,000 associates, of course, not only by natural growth, but also by acquisition of companies that complemented our skill set. So for instance, we had this design solution, which is an expert in piping and designing and planning. We had a company that is engaged in digital solutions, in automation, and we have an arm which is in operational consulting, for instance. So that allows us really to cover the whole spectrum of services as a provider. So to fill finish also, what can we cover in fill finish? I think we can cover all dimensions. The dimension of galenical forms, solid, liquid, everything in between, the technologies with, of course, mostly aseptic processing for sterile products, but also with regard to robotic solutions, or what you always have, the key element in fill finish, operation, sterile operations in isolators, wrap systems, or whatsoever. Another dimension is, of course, the project phases, where as an engineering company, we are able to support you from the very early phases, even before you go for an investment, from the strategic decisions over the investment phase down to the operations and operational improvement. So that's what's covered by our experience and by our history in fill finish. So being strong in that area, a couple of years ago, we consolidated the knowledge and the key expertise in a dedicated group that supports all the projects that are ongoing in that area. And here we have really the subject matter experts in, we have the engineers, but we have also that supported by validation, qualification, all the additional skills that you need to handle a fill finish operation. And that should give you some idea how fill finish is embedded into our overall project capabilities. So if you go for a full greenfield approach, then you have everything from infrastructure, meaning laboratory buildings, warehouses, whatsoever. If it's integrated, backward integrated into drug substance also, which is common in biopharmaceuticals, but what is of course nearly never the case in small molecules anyhow in Europe. Then we have also upstream, downstream if it's a biotech process, and then really the core of the fill-finish activities that are again embedded in the infrastructure around. That means building management systems, HVACs, electrical, and of course utilities, black and clean, steam, WFI or whatsoever. And at the bottom we just indicate all the areas we can support the project, from project management over structure, architecture, HVAC, down to manufacturing, science and technology, the last one, which allows us to support customers in the transfer of processes from one side to the other, from small scale to large scale, from clinical batches to production batches. So we really try to offer a maximum and a full coverage of the value chain of a product. So some words, just as teasers, what do we face as challenges and problems in fill finish, and that's very similar to what we see in any project actually. So without walking through point by point, just the first ones, we all know: time, costs and scope. This is the basic element of a business case and of the project. And we know how volatile this can be in not only fill-finish product, but especially there, because it's the last step of the value chain. If it's a product that's still in clinical testing, then we don't know how it develops, how the tests are, if the indications change, if formulations have to change. So it's still a high degree of flexibility needed. Time is always urgent, and nowadays we see at our customers more and more delays in decisions. And the delay in a decision, you see, ends automatically up in problems once it's decided and agreed, because then you have lost time, you have to compensate in the project. So the expectation is that you compensate the 3, 5, 6 months of decision time. You have increased prices if it's 1 year later compared to the cost estimate. So you're immediately in, I would say, a very reasonable challenge in that situation. Maybe economic situation is something that's linked to it, and here we all know, how should I phrase it? Let's say the present industry and energy policy of some European countries do not really support business cases. I would phrase it this way. So that means it's very, very difficult to decide at the moment for the companies whether they invest in Europe or they go to the States with the Inflation Reduction Act or something else. So that gives, again, another challenge with regard to time, scope, and so on. Regulatory and legal, well, here at least we have one topic where I think we have improved in the last 2 decades. When I think back in the late 90s, when the Annex 11 or Part 11 was published, computerized systems for the first time. Maybe some of you remember that. It was complete chaos. Nobody knew how to deal with it. The authorities were uncertain. The industry was uncertain. And it was really, how should I say, a big headache for everybody. But within the last 20 years, a lot of that worked out, and I think we are here in a far better situation than we were in the past. Nevertheless, regulations change, and there's just mentioned the Annex 1, and that's somehow linked to the ACHEMA. Who has been here with 2 years back knows that exactly at the ACHEMA, and I think it was also Thursday, the Annex 1 was published officially. So there was one presentation that had to be changed on a very short notice on that. Okay, existing structures, refurbishing, I think this all given maybe one word to sustainability. This also is an aspect that becomes more and more important in projects. We know that we are forced on one hand by the cost situation, energy prices and so on, future CO2 pricing, as well as by the legislation to be very, very keen on limited consumption of raw materials, of our CO2 footprint and so on. So that's also the reason why we always offer in projects to do a kind of green engineering approach on the whole chain and also, of course, on fill finish, meaning that we try to look at the whole life cycle of an operation, of an investment, to find the ideal setup and the ideal structure which allows us to minimize the environmental impact of an investment. Okay, so yeah, how do we approach these challenges? I would say there are, again, several dimensions. I mean, one is, as I said, we have 1,300 employees, and that gives a large know-how basis in all kinds of subjects and matters. The other dimension is the experience over the years we have with projects. With more than 1,000 projects, we have a strong basis, and we have, let's say, seen most of it already. And the third aspect, just to mention briefly, is our supplier base. So we have, of course, we have cooperations with suppliers, but we are not linked to any supplier, so we don't have any contracts that bind us to a supplier, and we can harvest from the experience of the suppliers, but we are fully free with our clients, with our customers, with whom we go and how we realize a project. Okay, so, and now to something completely different. Just one, let's say one idea, one heads up of a lot of experience we have with regard to concepts. So what we see in most of the projects is that the sequence of activities, and especially with regard to quality and quality concept validation, is not the ideal one. Yes? If you start to think about personal flow in a fill-finished or whatever plant, if you start to think about material flow after you have started detailed planning, it's too late. It's far too late. And the same is with the main element of a fill-finished operation, that is a containment concept, or it's a key document and a key policy, I would phrase it, to define the setup. And if you start too late and have already done detailed design, to have already started the construction, you are always limited in the concept. You're not able to do it in an overarching way, in a complete holistic way. You have it fragmented, you have interfaces, you have sections, and all of you who have been in front of an FDA or whoever auditor knows it's the best thing to have if you have to explain why it's done here so and here and that way. So for a seamless, logical concept, you have to start with these considerations, and then you can go into detailed planning. So that's just one of the key learnings, and something we always see again and again, because it's a pre-investment, because it's difficult, the people are not available, and. But really, we always try to insist with our customer to start with a concept, to start with thinking everything through, and then we go into planning. Okay, and now for the last couple of minutes, some examples without any deep details, just to give you a flavor of how we approach. There are no problems, I learned, challenges, and how we try to resolve it in various ways. So the first one I want to mention is quite funny at the end. It was an existing area, an existing room where fill-finish elements had to be built in, and this was an area with limited access and with given hallways, staircases, and so on. And there we had the problem: how can we really check and see what is able to be transported in? And one possibility, of course, would have been a digital twin. But even with a digital twin, if it's standard, you can't mimic how you move the skids, how you maneuver it, how you grip it, how you handle it actually. Or it is a very, very complicated skid. And then we went back to, let's say, very basic craftsmanship and just carpeted a wooden scaffold and with the exact diameters and just moved with that through. And that gave us quite a good idea of where the critical points are, where we have to shrink it a little bit, that we really can move it in. So it's simple, it's not high tech, but it was very effective and cheap in that case. So cheaper than a complicated digital twin taking care of each and every detail. So the next one, also without going into details, was something we see more and more, and if you go around here, you see a lot of these robots and robotic systems, and I think that's really a kind of future. We all know that in sterile operation, aseptic operation, the human is one of the biggest risks for sterility. I remember 20 years back, we already built a robotic system for loading and unloading a bulk lyophilizer, for instance. But here in that specific case, where it's also about opening and unpacking packed material, it was interesting to see that on one hand, many of the solutions quite need a lot of space. So it's not so tight building. That was one thing we learned, and the other one is that it's really up to a how should I say, risk approach of the customer, how much he relies on the robot or not. So here it was a cutting activity, cutting open the outer package, and whether it can be validated that there will be no injury on the material packed or not. So we had, as far as I understood, two customers. One went into a mixture of human and robotic system, and one with a little bit different challenge relied on a complete robotic system. So also here it's a lot of detail in that. Next one is again how you can help customers to reduce downtime. This was a large production suite where additional equipment for syringes had to be built in. And the demand was that the operation has to go on. So we were not able to shut it down for let's say 3-4 months. So we had a very limited time, and the solution here was that it took us only 3 weeks to build a new clean room wall in the room to segregate it, to separate the ventilations, and then we had the time to work behind the wall in the non-sterile area at that time, and at the end, when everything was validated and the clean room conditions were reinstalled, then we simply opened large doors, and then it was one room. So that saved actually, I would say, more than a couple of months of downtime in operation. And the last one is again coming back a little bit to what I had before with the concepts and the how should I say, the discussing and developing the process up front. This was a project where it was greenfield more or less on a parking lot, but the space was limited. And actually the available footprint or floor space was not sufficient for the operation intended to build in. And here we avoided to just shrink everything to a smaller scale, but we focused on the non-productive and infrastructure areas and squeezed out every square meter here, of course with the disadvantage of comfortable maintenance and so on, but that allowed us then to get out at least a decent space area, a decent footprint for the actual operation, that material flow, that people flow, personnel flow can be performed in a way that's supporting the sterile operation. But here also it was really essential that up front, before we started with the detail engineering, we went through the whole process and how should I say, scrutinized every square meter to see how we can build it up. So, that was back, yeah, that's good. So, as a summary, I just wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of how we approach fill finish, how it is embedded into our overall service and support we can give you. And if you have some questions, I'm happy with the colleagues here to answer them, and otherwise we would be happy to get into discussion with you at our booth in Hall 9. So thank you for that, and have a good evening up front and a good end of the ACHEMA.